So without further ado, I would like to introduce a dear friend and colleague of ours, Dr. Jolene Pearson. Jolene is the Director of Early Childhood Programming at Bethel University, but I've known Jolene far longer than that and in so many other different capacities. Jolene, way back, had the great good fortune of studying under T. Terry Brazelton, and I think this really profoundly colored the contributions she's brought to the field of early childhood. She has become something of an infant and baby expert, and she has authored 2 of our online courses, teaches one of them, and she has been an instructor here at the Summer Institute on a number of occasions. She also recently became a published author through 0 to 3, and it features one of her textbooks that is used in one of her courses, and which was really a huge honor. 0 to 3 is a big deal in the field. And in addition to her academic work with helping to support people become early childhood educators, she is also very highly active in the infant and early childhood mental health community. She is a board member at MACMA IEC. She is endorsed at the highest level, Category 4, and so therefore is able to do reflective supervision. She is one of the planners for a yearly faculty symposium that is held to help any of the cross-related disciplines that all of you come from, to help faculty members embed these critical and important infant and early childhood mental health principles into their existing curriculum, because it's something that is not typically taught outright, but it's really necessary, especially for those of you that are experiencing anyone that may be presenting with challenging behaviors. This is the type of information it's designed to help support once you're out in the field. So we're trying to help prepare our new practitioners. And Jolene has done so much to help bring that to the forefront here in the state. And so the reason I share all of these varied and impressive experiences of Jolene's is to help you understand why she was one of the original planning members when BUILD became a possibility in the minds of the planners at Bethel. And so I'd like to introduce Jolene and have her take it from here. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Summer Institute. And as I look out in the crowd, I am so excited to see many faces that I know, but many of you are new. And I'm going to encourage you, when you're here, I know when you're with your friends, it's easy to hang out. Try to meet somebody new that you've never met or who's new here to the Institute. And I met Wayne from the BICAP Head Start. Where are you, Wayne? Oh, thank you. So it was exciting for me to know what's going on in northern Minnesota. So I just wanted to say that for 30 years I had a career, and I was in ECFE, and then I was in ECSE. And in 2012 I joined the faculty at Bethel University. And as soon as I got there, I learned that they were very interested in special education. We explored the opportunity to start an early childhood special ed licensure program, and that's kind of in the background. And we believe that very soon we're going to be announcing an undergrad special ed program. And I also, almost immediately getting to Bethel, learned about this idea that they had for an inclusive college program. And I met Julie White. And Julie White is a graduate of Bethel. She's on the board of trustees, but she also was a person who had a passion to see this happen at Bethel. So fast forward from 2012 to August of 2015, and we had students, the 12 inaugural BUILD students, moving into Bethel. They had their suitcases moved in and their boxes and all of their things, and they were having lunch on August 24th with their parents, and they were then going to say goodbye. And I was sitting at a table of parents and students, and I noticed that the parents were having a really hard time kind of having the lunch be over, and it reminded me of when you're a home visitor doing births to 3, and you're trying to have the parents think about having their child go to preschool and it's kind of overwhelming to them to think their child would be off and alone. Well, this was very similar, but they were going to be off and alone in college. And one of the things I had learned in my 3 years at Bethel that I could reassure them was that Bethel was a caring, supportive, living out Christian values kind of community, and that their students would never be alone. I am always amazed at Bethel, the kindness of the staff and faculty and the students. And I know I've invited Seed faculty for lunch, and they've noticed the same thing. So it's a wonderful, caring environment that has a lot of encouragement. So the people that are coming forward to talk to you are Julie White, who was the person who had this vision, and Marla, who's on the advisory board, Michaela, who just graduated from the Bethel Build program with her parents Sandy and Craig, and Daniel, who's in the program currently with his parents Jeff and Joy. So please welcome them, and they're going to just share their experience.
Well, good morning. We're Team Build today, okay? And the mornings you get to wake up and do joy work are really good days. And we're here to do joy work and to share with you our journey as a group, okay, and individually. So it is an honor and a delight, and we thank you for the invitation to be here. Build has brought Build Team together. That's the program that we all know each other in. But really what's brought us all together is our deep commitment to students, to children, to families with intellectual disabilities that want to learn and grow and become independent. So we are parents, and we're educators, and we're advocates, and we're cheerleaders, and sometimes we're pushy. A lot of times I'm pushy, okay? Because we believe in the work that you all do every day, and we're here to show you the outcomes of that. Because it starts with all of you and all of us coming together as parents and families and infants that grow into young adults, and the parents get older, and we see more things happening. And you have been with us on this journey in so many ways. And so we want to share that as part of a team that's larger than Team Build, but Team Big, okay? I'm also told, and you know, it's always a little nerve-wracking when you're the first person up here and one of your colleagues says to you, by the way, we got a little surprise somewhere that's going to happen in the presentation. It's a little something, something, all right? And they don't tell you what it is. So I'm just here to say it's going to happen. The fathers representing us here have a little something, something. And that's all I know, okay? So be prepared, all right? But it's a joy. Okay, Build, Bethel University Inclusive Learning and Development. We have, in this country, blessed with 270 programs that are similar, aligned with, do the same work as Build in some way, shape, or form. They're not identical. We now have 6 programs in Minnesota. And Bethel is the newest, the Bethel Build program is the newest of those programs. And it is a pulse on the campus. It's a pulse in our life. And it's a program that we are just so jazzed about because it means we're helping students become independent. Young adults growing into who they're designed to be, okay? So we're number 6. So how did Build come to be? Well, I have to take you back in history a little bit to bring you to the forward, okay? So in this picture, the young woman in the red shirt in the one picture and the one holding the 2 fancy dresses, that's my daughter, Emily. Emily is 31, so we're about a decade ahead in terms of where Build students are today. Emily has intellectual disabilities due to a Down syndrome diagnosis, all right? And the picture on this end is Emily standing with her housemate and best friend, Emily. because you can never have too many Emilys, which is our, okay? And they are both in their 30s, and they live independently in this house, and they both work. And my daughter Emily works in a bridal store because she's all about the bling and fashion, all right? But here's the connection that I really want to share with you in terms of the early childhood experience. So Emily is 31, so we were a bit in a different place from an infrastructure standpoint in Minnesota at that time, where the public schools and the school systems was different, okay? And we worked with a number of agencies, and Emily had her first teacher come to our house at 4 weeks of age. And we started a heavy intervention, a heavy plan, a lot of work with our first partner, Denise. And there are many things I could share with you about the work that was really important in the partnership. 3 nuggets that Denise impressed on us that I'm sure you have impressed on families today, all right? So just typically what would happen is she would come in and teach Emily. At the end, we would all be so exhausted. I'd go in one room and cry, Emily go in one room and cry, and Dale would go in one room and cry, and then we'd come back and do all the exercises that she told us to do, okay? Number 1 nugget. Dale and Julie, I can guarantee you that everything I teach you to teach Emily will pay dividends sometime in her life. Trust me on this. It may not make sense today, but trust me, it's going to make sense as you see her develop. Number 1. Number 2, if Emily's awake, you stimulate, okay? Well, Emily didn't sleep through the night till 8th grade, so that was a bit of a problem. So, and I knew at about 10 months when I was reading her the Bisquick box one night that, wow, this is interesting, right? So, stimulate, right? You teach us that. You help us with that. You show us how to do that. And the third one was work really hard to make sure you don't do anything that you believe Emily can do. You start with day 1 with this goal of independence, all right? Long meals, waiting for the word please, spaghetti's cold, you know, long walks around, I can't walk anymore. Yes, you can. You know what I'm talking about, right? The nuggets, and I could list you 100 more of the wonderful guidance through the partnership that we had with people doing the work that you do. So I thank you for that, okay? So fast forward, Emily's in high school and she says, I'm going to college. I'm going to college. And this is in a different era. There were not 270 programs. There were fewer programs. She said, you're finding me a college. This is before Google. Now she'd find her own college, okay? She's really good at that. So she went off to school in Skokie, Illinois, the PACE program at National Louis. And on her graduation day, we asked her a lot of questions, but 2 specific questions that I think are poignant that tie to the BUILD program. Emily, what did you miss the most when you were away at school? Thinking it's going to be Mama. It wasn't Mama. Okay. She said, my church and my Bible study. Because she was used to a holistic look at learning. Emotional development, spiritual development, academic development, etc. Okay? And then I asked her, Emily, what was the hardest part about going to college? She looked at me and she said, Mother, and you know when they use mother or father? Mother, it was all hard. But I had to do it so I could live my life. Okay. So you taught us. Work for independence. She's 4 weeks old. Don't do it if she can do it. Help her do it so I can live my life. That was my call to say, who comes around to start a program in a place like Bethel? To Jolene's part, it's a safe, supportive, academically rigorous, place that has the whole spectrum of development. And from there, the momentum took over, okay? So those of us in the faith community say, God opened the doors, the rest of us just were charged to run through it, okay? A lot of people doing a lot of work, including parents and psychologists and teachers, etc., and we ran through it and we built the program, okay? And that, too, is joy work, all right? So, we've graduated our third class, right? Second class, we're omitting our fourth class. That's why I get mixed up. So I'm not on campus every day, all right? Build program, just quickly, one slide on the build program. So we tried and worked to build a comprehensive program that had employment, core academic solidification of life skills, supportive environments, elective classes from a lifelong learning piece, okay? So you get the whole set of interactive pieces and the whole campus is used because it's a residential program and learning takes place whether you're in the cafeteria building social relationships or whether you're in the classroom working on math skills or whether you're taking an elective that enhances your ability to understand art or science or some piece, and it's supported through layers of mentorship and support, okay? I'm not going to read you the next 3 slides because what's a better story? This is the story of our students, okay? So we have Daniel Klein, who will be starting his 2nd year in the Build program in September, and his parents Joy and Jeff with us. And we have Michaela Holmgren, and who has just graduated from the Build program, and her parents Sandy and Craig, who will tell their story and share with you, and Marla Olson, who is on the Build advisory group and is long-term early childhood school psychologist, who will work with them in terms of some Q&A, okay? Oh, I want to talk about the expected outcomes. See, this is what happens to me. I get so excited about the story. Sorry. Okay, in a minute, we're going to turn it over to you, okay? That wasn't the something, right? Okay, so expected outcomes for the program. You can read the pages before, which gives you some detail about the design. Expected outcomes. See if they sound familiar in terms of where you start, okay? Increased in independent living. Our students want to live independently, work, be out in the community. In order to do that, we have goals and outcomes around self-care, all right? Being able to care for a living space, all right? Can they is it cleaned up? You know, that's a lifelong journey I'm finding with a 31-year-old. That's okay. Skills to choose, budget, shop, and prepare meals. So I can take care of myself, I can take care of my living, I can prepare my meals, I can eat healthily. And skills to live with others in terms of sharing space, building relationships, good boundaries, that sort of thing, okay? Meaningful employment. So I come from an HR career, and I am all about people working in things in areas that bring them joy and that they can feel productive in. And we want our Build graduates to be employed at least half-time or more, and there's a spectrum of how that's viewed in terms of what the individual's interested in and their schedule. Employed at a minimum wage or greater, and working hard with employers to understand we just don't bring in and leave at a certain wage, but how do you increase with performance and responsibility. And working in a career field in a position that is meaningful to the student, because we want them to get up and have fun going to work and make a difference and an impact that they will do through their work, okay? So those are our desired outcomes. So now that I've warmed you up twice, folks, okay, Daniel is our first storyteller about his life.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Hi, I'm Daniel Klein. I have completed my first year at Bethel in the Bill program.
Good for you, buddy.
I remember my early childhood teacher introducing me to my teacher and saying, "This is Daniel. He is a hard worker." And then I first started school. I knew I was ready to go to college because I went to DCTC, and that was a college. I was there for classes and tradition. I wanted to go to Bethel like my brother. The challenges for me in college has been learning how to eat healthy food, not eating too much, exercising when I can, getting my homework done has been hard, but the mentors helped me, and Don said that's why they're there. The successes for me in college have been being on the Special Olympics Unified Bowling and Basketball teams, and I've also made a lot of friends in build and not in build. We even got first and second place for Special Olympics Unified Basketball tournaments. I am part of the swim club. I've also passed all my classes. My favorite classes have been choir and tennis. So far in college, I've learned to get to breakfast in my classes on time. I how to clean dishes, order what I want in the dining center, and when to take showers and brush my teeth. Next year, I hope to start Special Olympic Unified Floor Hockey team and go out with a bang by getting into men's choir, getting all my homework done in independent study, and take all classes with Roman.
Good job, buddy.
We're really not that smooth, as you can tell. And
Something.
actually, I'm not that smooth. Julie and Marla are smooth. But I do want to say thanks to you guys, because Daniel's 22 years old, and when we're thinking back to when he was 2 to 5 years old or earlier, that's a long time ago. And I'm a middle school teacher, and people look at me and say, "You're a middle school teacher?" And they think, "How can you do it with 13-year-olds?" And I look at you people and I go, "How do you do it?" I can hold conversations with people and with the students that I teach. And I just want to let you know you're amazing. Because when Daniel first started getting involved at the age of 3, he had an autism diagnosis and something called DCD. And it was explained to us at the time that DCD is developmentally cognitively delayed. And I think you know there's a lot of acronyms. I'm a school teacher. We have a lot of acronyms in middle school. I heard a flurry of them earlier this morning. So I hear the word delayed, and I'm thinking, well, he'll just catch up. And I didn't get that, this is what was going to happen. There was no Google back then. And for younger people, that's, believe it or not, that was wasn't always there. And so we didn't really fully grasp what that meant. He couldn't speak very much. He couldn't eat very much. And now you just heard him speaking, and you can see that he eats. But when I talk about being a middle school teacher and at conferences, and we have the interaction, and it works pretty well, and sometimes most of the time the parents are really pleased, not always. I would say when we were going through, and my wife is a teacher as well, when we were having those first IEP meetings and meeting with folks like you, we were hostile. And maybe you guys experienced it. I don't know what you walked through. But, we were in denial. This can't be. We have 2 older kids. And we kind of thought, well, maybe we'll write a book. It seems so with the 2 older kids. Daniel changed all that. We're humbled. And that's why I say thanks a lot. And I hope you hear that. And I'm glad you came, if for nothing else, to hear the thanks. I'm not done.
Oh.
Something now.
So Jeff spoke to it, some of the hostilities. A lot of that centered around when you brought in the testing, I'm sure you experienced some of that pushback from parents. But that was a hard time for us as we just questioned many of the results of that as being on the parent side of it. It was just really hard. And I think even, Julie, you talked to it too. It's a time where you're kind of hit by it really hard and just your life has changed by it. But again, we weren't sure what it all meant. But we thought, yep, we'll send him off to early intervention. And probably our emotions peaked the most when we put him off on that bus for the first day of school. And it was in Farmington Public Schools. He was 3 years old. And put him on that bus. And for us, we saw Daniel. Daniel always has had a smile on his face. It's very unusual for him not to have a smile on his face. And, just as we're putting him on the bus, I think what I really thought of is, how's this going to change him? Is that smile going to go away from him? Because that's what it's always marked him. And I didn't know if the cares and all that school would bring would change that. But we faithfully put him on the bus, and days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. And the thing we learned about Daniel is that he really loved school. He loved his teachers. He loved the interactions with other students that he was getting. He loved his bus rides. It was very easy to see that it was something wonderful in his eyes. We saw growth going on with Daniel. His vocabulary, first off, he started using words we hadn't heard, and then it moved towards sentences. And then he found trigger topics that he could engage in conversation, because when you meet Daniel, one thing you'll learn is that he really wants to have a conversation with you. And that was something that school really helped him along with, finding those ways to communicate with others, which is what he so desired. We actually chose that picture right there because that's actually Daniel signing, at the end of signing for more, as his world of food and appetite kind of opened up. And, food actually became his first kind of trigger topics that he would talk to people. Do you remember your first question you'd ask people?
What do you have for breakfast?
Yeah, he'd ask him, what are you having for breakfast? Or what'd you have for breakfast? So that was Daniel. But anyway, as we saw that growth, it was really easy transition to go, okay, this is okay. We started to have a trust for the teachers, for you guys, knowing that you were doing some good. My son obviously loved going to school. With deliberate and consistent communication with teachers, relationship developed between us, and that was super key. And with that, really a partnership was forged between us as a family and with the special education staff. And that was key for Daniel. I don't need to tell you how key that is. If you have the parents buy into what you're doing, then there's going to be, they're going to be following up and working on those skills that you give them to work. You're going to have a consistent message between school and home. And that was really key for him. I will say, if there was ever anything that happened in Daniel's day, he knew he wasn't getting away with it. And he knew that we would hear about it. So it was a consistent message. Obviously the good things too, but, Daniel knew that we were on the same page. It also helped with transfer of skills. We since we knew what they were working on, we could take it out into his world the other part of the day. So the skills went from within the classroom. Daniel knew that they transferred outward, into his real life, his other life, and saw that seamlessly.
So now, I don't know, I hope we've painted the picture of, and maybe you see students like this that cannot speak or speak very little. He ate baby food till he was 3 or 4 because of texture issues. And I stand in amazement because Daniel never lets us, we're always outed by Daniel. I just think about a time a pastor was talking about anger. Someone has anger issues, and he was talking about, and all of a sudden I look over my right shoulder, and there's Dan pointing at me. Well, you're doing a great job. But it doesn't matter if Daniel is talking to our lead pastor. I think the president could walk in, or the janitor could walk in. Daniel treats everyone the same, and he has a joy when he is with those people, and he always is asking those questions. He started with, "What did you have for dinner?" or "What did you have for breakfast?" And he would ride his bike down the street, and that's what he'd be saying. He's now learning so much more. If you had said to us at 3 years old he would be sitting up here, no way. We could not believe that. It had to be incremental. And now his conversations that he has with us, the new words he uses, and the amazing thing is this kid, is that picture still up? Yeah. This kid that couldn't speak and had to do sign language things, now his job at Bethel, his first year, his internship, is he took prospective students and their parents all by himself around campus and would explain to the prospective student and the parents what was going on the campus, what this building was, what happened in this area. And, I mean, that's again back to you. That's back to Julie's story about if you do these things, maybe not today, maybe not next month, but maybe 20 years later, that's what's you'll see the fruit of that. And again, that's thanks to you. I think that's it for me.
So in closing, we'd like to leave you with a few thoughts just from our experiences from Daniel's early days. First, know that there's going to be pushback from parents. I mean, we're a great example of that when I spoke of the hostilities of the testing. Don't take it personally, though. I mean, just know that a parent's love for their child is fierce. And especially when you're talking with a vulnerable child, our instincts to just protect and bond with our child are very high. You think about the milestone moment it is for parents of kindergartners to put their child on a bus, at 5 years old. For us, it comes a couple years earlier. And just when we're hardly ready to really lose the time with them, at such a young age of like 3 years old. It's a big deal. And so the pushback isn't a personal thing. It's just trying to take it all in and wanting to kind of hold that child and keep and protect them. The other one is to just, Jeff kind of made reference to it, explain those acronyms. Don't let them be a code between you and your colleagues. And you just know the language, but as parents, we don't know that language. And especially like Jeff said, when it was before Google, it was even harder. We couldn't look it up. So give the acronyms really a face and a future for parents. For us, what we really could have used was a frank discussion of what was before us. We just didn't really have that picture, and it just gave us a wrong impression and didn't really prepare us in such a way. So a frank discussion would be wonderful to just kind of give us that idea of the future, even if it is a hard discussion. It's important. Finally, just work the T's. I call them the T's, and they're the trust and teamwork with parents. Communicate early and often to parents, even in times of, beyond times of crisis. Crises are the ones that we jump to when we need to communicate. but communicate in those ways when you see those positives. And I'm sure you hear that all the time, and we hear it as teachers as well. But there's something to be said if that communication is started early and in the positives and what you're seeing. And remember, I'm not always getting the picture of what school is like, especially early on, you know. So you give me the glimpses into Daniel's day that I don't know. And if I know that you're communicating and I'm seeing that we're working on the same page, it's going to go such a long ways. Just that idea that we're championing the same things. So Daniel is really the product of multiple people along his path that believed in him and really championed him, you know, through all those years. You guys were the ones really that set the pace for that journey of education for Daniel, and Bethel is really just the latest stop along there with what's going to be ultimately a lifelong learning for him. So thanks really for all you do. I hope that these two are really the fruit of, you know, they can be like your fruit. You see it, what you won't always get that glimpse of your child, you know, years down the road. I hope that they'll offer that fruit for you. So the Daniel Klein, the unsinkable Daniel Klein went. Now we have the unsinkable, like, Michaela Holmgren to share her story.
I'm going to give you the background of Michaela, and then she'll tell you her little story. But there were many challenges with her. First, we found out she was going to have Down syndrome about a week before she was born, prior 6.5 weeks early by emergency C-section. She had multiple medical issues. Her cord was wrapped around her throat 3 times, and the doctors weren't sure how much brain damage she would have and whether she would ever walk or talk. In those early months, we were so thankful that, because her health was so fragile, we were not allowed to go out in public much, and I used to joke with her pediatrician that she was my social life. And if it wasn't for the early childhood team coming in, you know, I don't know if I'd even see too many people. But they were there maybe a day or two after she came home from the NICU, and they would laugh and joke and say, well, you know, according to her adjusted age, she's not even born yet. So, but I just so appreciated that. Her speech, of course, was slow to come, and I just felt like we spent a lot of time in therapies just working on her speech. Using sign language was a plus, and it helped Michaela so much to just let others know what she wanted, what she needed. It kept the frustrations down. And, you know, not knowing what Michaela or any child is capable of when you start at the basics, you have to start at the basics and build on it. So strengths and weaknesses coexist. They may have a hard time doing one thing, but you'll find that they'll excel on something else. So when you build on the strengths and improve on the weaknesses, the success will come, but it just takes time.
I was going to say that Michaela was also our first child, and a month in the NICU, and then bringing that child home with a feeding tube, you know, kind of sleeping with one eye open. Those first months were also part of the equation, and that fragility and the fact that they came out to our home. Sorry. All right. All right, I get it. Came out to our home was just very, very, very meaningful.
So, and what makes it hard as children of an intellectual disability is, you know, watching your friends' children at the same age doing things that, you know, your child is so far behind, and just knowing that it's going to take a lot more time to just achieve these goals. But the patience and the support from our early childhood team was amazing, and they were able to celebrate every little achievement that Michaela made along the way. They would come to our house 2 to 3 times a week until Michaela started preschool, and they taught us so many things to do with her during those times that, you know, in between visits that I could work on with her. and the therapy that they taught us, then Michaela and I just kind of bonded. I bonded with this little tiny, she was only 4.5 pounds, just tiny little thing. So I just really, just bonded with her. And as she entered preschool, the best part was the consistency of the same teachers and therapists that made for smooth transition. So, when she got on the bus, and she was only 2.5 when she got on her first bus ride, and I'm crying, to enter a building, a huge building without mom and dad, but to see the same faces that she had already had for 2.5 years there welcoming her, and just made it, the separation anxieties kind of disappear because she loved her teachers. Also with this class she had, it was her and one other girl and 6 boys, kind of similar to what she was at the Build program this year with 2 girls and 8 boys. But the other little girl had spina bifida, and she was a talker. And what was so amazing during these classes is because Michaela wasn't very verbal, but she could run, circles around everybody. Katie was Michaela's voice, so she knew exactly what Michaela needed. And Michaela was Katie's legs, so she'd get up and go grab something for Katie and bring it back to her. So just the way that the early childhood team saw by putting these two together, they kind of made one person, to get through that class. As you're working with these children, you have to know that there is so much more potential that may not be apparent until much, much later. You may not see it now, but someday it'll start to shine through. And we believe that so many children with intellectual disabilities have so much more knowledge in their heads than they can communicate. And the testing doesn't always show that. And, we've had some really bad testing, telling us that she was pretty much not able to do anything. And we're like, this can't be true. And it wasn't, because here she is today. Again, we are so grateful for our early childhood team and how they really believed in Michaela. They would set goals, and we would work super hard to achieve those goals every week. In those initial years of learning and processing goals, any child needs to hear positive affirmation, and that is so true with our children especially. The more that you lift them up and affirm everything that they do, the more they want to make you happy, they want to reach those goals. So your true efforts may not be seen for many years, but they are probably some of the most important that you will end up seeing later in life. You want to kind of follow from there?
Well, I think it's there's a process where there's just a million little steps. And I think back, to Mary and to Cheryl, and everything that they had, there was a purpose to it. If they can twist this cap off that's really good for her, because it'll help her later hold a pencil, or if she does this standing and walking or holding on to this, that will strengthen her legs. So they seem to know how all the pieces went together, and that's really hard as a new parent. There's enough to learn and do anyway, and I think that when I look back at that, that was just a godsend to have someone who treated your daughter like they were, she was their daughter, and the interest and the love. And I too remember that first day when she went and got out of the school bus. It was, see ya. There was no holding back there, and that's really a positive feedback when your kid loves to go to school and loves to be in that environment. There's something good that's happening there. And do you want me to talk about? And since that time, she's set a lot of goals, and she's been involved in a lot of activities, and I think that's really been key. And not all the activities worked out, but the ones that she showed a passion to, we rode that wave. Dance being one of them, and she's a fairly accomplished dancer. She's been dancing now for 15 years, and that's one of her goals now, is maybe to go on and to teach dance. And I think the other things that she's been involved in, whether it's been gymnastics, Special Olympics, all those things really helped build her into the person that she is today. And I think as parents and as educators, getting the kids involved in as many activities as they can to stimulate them, to help them grow, has been very, very, very beneficial. And she continues to amaze us, and it's been fun watching her go off to Bethel. And again, Bethel has provided just a wonderful environment for her. We've seen her grow in so many ways, and she told us in the car one day, "Gee, Mom and Dad, it's a lot more fun at Bethel than living at home with you guys." And that's kind of hard to hear, but in a way, that's kind of what you're looking for. And she has shared a lot of goals and dreams for us. She said, "When I get my own place, I'm going to invite you over sometimes." And so she has a vision of being independent, and as parents, we've tried to provide her with the opportunities to achieve those goals. And now we're in kind of a unique situation where the end of structure is kind of done. She's graduated from Bethel. The education, all the structure and going to class every day now is over. Now we're meeting with some of the social workers and working out employment plans and doing resumes and job interviews and kind of taking that next step in life. And but looking back, just so much of it goes into all the effort that you people have made in helping her, get from A to B. And there's kind of an interesting statistic out, I think, that kids with Down syndrome will actually learn more from 18 to 30 than they will from 1 to 18. And that's because it takes so long in that process to build all those little steps. Those goals of, hey, she talked in 3-word sentences this week. I mean, I look back at where we started from and where she's ended up now. It's just been a real joy and a real blessing.
And I have to say that when she came home last summer, I realized the growth and independence in her. And it went from me being her caretaker to actually being her mom and her being my daughter, and having that mother-daughter relationship versus a caregiver relationship was amazing. And she does continue to inspire us. And I don't know if you know, but she did run for Miss Minnesota USA. First woman with Down syndrome in the United States to do that. And to be able for her to even get up and speak, she has spoken at the UN, it's just amazing that, 23 years ago, when you're looking at this little baby and they're telling us we don't think she could talk, and to where she is now, but it was through the help of our early childhood team. And on that note, we're going to introduce Miss Amazing Michaela.
And let me get closer. Hi, my name is Michaela Holmgren. I have grown since early childhood. I remembered to working on social skills and handwriting in early childhood. I knew I was ready to go to college because I went to go to Bethel like my mom and dad. At college, challenges for me were getting up and getting all my classes on time. My newest thing. That's one thing. I balanced my tray in the dining center, and I'm not sending text or group messages too late at night, discusses for me at college work, earning a Ruby's Rainbow Scholarship, getting into the dance team, being part of chapel choir, and being a social mentor to first-year students in Build, working at the Children's Museum studio space for my internship, and then I gained offered a job at the Crayola Experience. I learned a lot in college. I learned to ask help for, like, calling security to get a ride back to my dorm. And now I can get up on my own and get all my classes on time.
Well, thank you to the Kleins and to the Holmgrens for sharing all of that. I am Marla Olson. I was the school psychologist for the Stillwater School's early childhood special ed program for years, and I always thought it was just like repulsive that they sent me home with a paycheck because nobody should have paid for a job that was that much fun. I did take the paycheck. But just a little insight before I go on with my part. I've gotten to know Daniel and Michaela through this process of getting ready for this, and I've known Julie's daughter, Emily, since before she was born. And going back to what Joy said, just about they are the fruits of these parents and you guys, looking at the parents, when you meet Daniel, you think you are his best friend. He lights up. He gives out his hand. He is so excited to see you. And I mean, it makes me happy for the rest of the day whenever I see Daniel. Tells me a lot about Joy and Jeff. Michaela, as they said, the girl has not met a goal she has not tackled. Tells me a lot about Sandy and Craig. Emily White's first sentence was, "Off with your head." Yeah. Just sharing with you, they are the fruits of their parents. So when I got onto the advisory council, I looked at the benchmarks, and I did this really well for everybody else. And I was just kind of amazed at how similar they were to our growth indicators in the Hawaii and the HELP, whichever your district calls it. You move on to the LAP 3, you move to the BASC, adaptive behavior, you move to the ABAS. It is just this wonderful, continuous measurement of growth. So when you look at what's up there, the very first thing on the HELP, those are on the, I'm not good with left and right, they're on the left. But you take that babbles to people and you move it to asks for help and clarification, which is one of the first benchmarks for Bethel. We're just starting in early childhood and moving it up. So what I did is I went back to a bunch of the parents I had worked with and I'm still friends with and said, let's go through these indicators. Let's go see where your child is. And a lot of the parents would look at me and say, my kid at 7 will never be able to do this. And we'd go back and we'd look at the HELP and all of these other things and they'd go, oh, well, maybe they can. And I said, so when should parents first be introduced to these benchmarks? Without hesitation, every single parent I said, or talked to said early childhood. So I'm not saying take your Bethel benchmarks with you and show them to parents. Hi, this is your child that has a little bit of a delay. We're going to work toward this. Rather, though, if as early childhood educators, we can keep that in our minds, that we are going to work on that and help introduce that whole concept to parents, I think it'll be a little less intimidating as parents go through it. The other thing we decided to do was take a bunch of those questions that parents had, ideas parents had, and turn those into a question answer session with these guys right now. So what we're going to do is ask a couple questions, ask the parents to answer them. If it triggers something in you, is this reverberating? No, just to me. Cool. Hopefully we'll have time at the end where you can ask questions as well if we don't hit everything you want to know. But for Jeff, Joy, Sandy, Craig, when the whole thing started, what tools, what skills did you have already working with your child that you could expand on? And just go for it, peeps. Okay, they had none, but.
I think as teachers, one of the things that Jeff and I brought was knowing that we had to break things down into a small pieces. You know, we could look at Daniel, okay, he has feeding issues, you know, how we could take food, find grab onto the things that he likes, and then build on it in texture to get him to that next step to something with more texture. Or, you know, be it, you know, sentences, keep working on building those up. I mean, we knew that those increments there were, you know, that we had to build on to get to the larger thing.
Super. Sandy, Craig?
My sister was a physical therapist, so I was introduced to people with special needs early on. And I think just the fact that we looked at our child and we didn't look at her Down syndrome first, we looked at she was a child first. So it's always, she's a child. You know, her Down syndrome is something, as she always says, oh, I have Down syndrome on the side. You know, it's, I think that just helps mindset to say, okay, we're just going to work on our child. No, let's not worry about the diagnosis, just work on the child.
I think there's a lot of fundamentals too, with the Down syndrome, the lower muscle mass, just those fine motor skills. Eating was virtually a drop cloth under a high chair. It was just, getting those things coordinated. And then all the things that they had in place, whether it's we're doing this to get to here. I mean, there was just a lot of just strategic things in there that helped build those fundamentals was very evident and very helpful.
And then what about information, skills, tools that you wanted from the early childhood professionals? What were you really seeking initially?
I think Joy mentioned about having those frank conversations, and I don't know I don't know how you have those frank conversations when you feel that someone is resistant. I think it's a fine line where is someone going to listen to what I have to say? I mean, we can say that we want to partner with you, and in our hearts we want to do it, but if our body language is showing, hey, you know it all, I'm living with this kid 24 hours a day, you're coming in as a hotshot. I think that's a difficult spot for you guys. And I see a few heads nodding, but the lights are blinding. So I guess I would rather, I guess we're not supposed to ask you questions, but that would be a question I would say to you is how do you do that? How do you, give those tools to parents? How do you get them on your side? Is that training that you receive? Because I would think that would be a difficult job for you. Right, in building that relationship. Right.
And that does happen.
And I would say that's one of the things in Build that they say we want the students to make mistakes because from the mistakes that's how they learn. And I think as early childhood teachers or middle school teachers, we make mistakes, that's how we learn, but there's a kid involved too, and that's a great question. I don't have a good answer, I guess.
So I actually just looked at my watch, and there's technically 3 minutes left. We've got a whole bunch of questions we can ask. Are there specific ones you guys want to ask about an early childhood experience? Anybody out there got a question? Because we can fill the last 3 minutes. Yes. So in case you couldn't hear it, the question was the transition into preschool, what information would have made that easier, smoother for you? Is that correct?
I think maybe, and maybe you do this, bring the parents in and show them the classroom, show them how the students are interacting with the teachers. And I think we might have had that happen. I think that for us, just to see it in action so that we can envision our kid in that classroom.
And I think as well, we talked about the relationship. For us, the relationship built as, the year went along. We didn't have so much precursor to it that I remember. If there had been more where it built in before, that would have helped, I think, in that relationship piece you're talking about. Mm-hmm. If it could have happened before versus that, and it might just have been that it had to be that way, by nature of how it went.
So Sandy and Craig, because you were in service with Michaela long before that preschool, and you mentioned Mary and Cheryl, who I'm going to go back and tell that you mentioned, how did that, what was the part that made it the smoothest other than the same staff? Is there something that could have made it smoother?
They were pretty much rock stars to start with.
Michaela went to Stillwater School's early childhood special ed program, so we're familiar.
The location was kind of like an abandoned strip mall kind of a section where it was very small, fairly intimate, set up, quite a bit of space in there. And we were over there beforehand and had a relationship even going in there. So the transition, I think, for us was pretty...
And maybe what would have helped even a little better is maybe meeting the other families too before we actually got into that environment, because all of a sudden, like I said, we're thrown together with another girl and 6 boys that we had never met before. But,
So I'm going to go back. We still have a minute, don't we? Okay. Jeff, you talked about building the teamwork. What worked? Who was your team? 0 to 3, 3 to 5, and Holmgren's listen because you're going to have to answer this next. And what made it a team? What finally solidified it for you guys?
I'm embarrassed to say it, but I just feel like you guys work way harder than a middle school teacher. And I think, and I say that because we would get communication, handwritten letters, emails that I believe that these teachers were doing outside of their, what do you call those hours? Yeah, you know it, duty hours. And I don't know if that broke any union rules, but that's what I felt, is that communication, that showing that you cared about our Daniel, that's what really got things going. And yet, I think that's a big ask. And I know your caseloads are high, but that's what did it for us.
Sandy and Craig, you got anything there?
I think the IEPs that we had from them were really well laid out, thought out, detailed. I'm kind of a benchmark guy, so it was nice to, if our goal was to, this quarter, see if we can talk in get three-word sentences, or able to clearly write your name, or whatever those were, and then to kind of benchmark that and show the progress that's being made. And we would see that at home too. Whether it was coloring, we were, instead of being this far outside the lines, we were like this far outside. So, kind of that progression there. And we knew that we were getting their best effort. And I think when you get that, that helps build that relationship. There wasn't anything where, gosh, I wish we could do this, or why isn't this happening? We were really very trusting of them and their analysis. This is what they do for a living. And being our first child, we were kind of going, okay, is this how it works? And so there was some of that as well.
Yeah, I think we just clicked. I mean, them being in my home 3 times a week, you just form this wonderful relationship. And, I listen to them, they listen to me, and that's how it works, I guess.
Okay. Sounds good. Well, first of all, I'd also like to thank our little, I think it was Molly, who kept running out. Appreciate that a lot. And then our final thing is just thank you. Thank you so much for all of the work that you do, for being a part of people's lives. And I know, speaking from my point, sometimes letting go. Like, I've invested so much of my world being in this little person's house to be able to say, oh, goodbye, have fun in kindergarten, is a heartbreaker. But we all still stay invested. So thank you for that. It's because the journey that you guys start is how we end up with these guys. Thank you.